From the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson.com, this is the Wildcast.
If I could ask you too, considering some of the losses among the top 5 teams or so, you guys could move up, maybe even the top 3 or so. I'm wondering if that happens, and kind of, what do you think about that possibility?
As maybe Nick Saban would say, rat poison. It's rat poison. I mean, this team is just sitting around. Everybody's telling them how good they are. They got to understand what makes them good. What makes them good is when they're edgy. They got a chip on their shoulder. They play incredibly hard. They attention to detail. They take care of the ball. And I feel like we've just slipped a little bit in those areas. And we got to fight to get them back.
You hear that? Rat poison. Arizona now number 3 in the AP Top 25. Its highest place in the AP poll since 2017-18 when a guy by the name of DeAndre Ayton was playing for the Arizona Wildcats. I'm Justin Spears. That's Alec White, and we are recording a new episode of the Wildcast podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could, please subscribe. But we'd also appreciate it if you left a rating and a review. Those are always helpful for us and also the other podcasting streams. And, of course, for all Arizona Wildcats basketball coverage, both men and women's, go to Tucson.com. But more importantly, go to the Wildcaster app. It's great. We have so much content on there for free. You don't need a subscription to the Arizona Daily Star. You get stories, podcasts, videos, everything on all things Arizona sports at your fingertips, the Wildcaster app. So, Alec, we are now approaching the back, we are in the back half of January, but we are
back half of the season.
Back half of the season, right? This is like the home stretch for a lot of teams in college basketball. And for the Arizona Wildcats, they're 14-1. That's the best start they've had to a season since 2004-15. And now they have a very tough road stretch ahead. They got to go to the Bay Area, and I know that if you look at both teams on paper, Arizona is very superior to these Bay Area teams. But Stanford did knock off USC. So, I mean, Stanford weren't they USC's first loss of the season?
Yeah, USC's first loss. It was at Maples Pavilion.
Can be done.
It can be done.
It can be done.
The interesting thing about this week's matchups is I think they're going to be played without fans in both the state of California with both Berkeley and Palo Alto, as well as LA County, at least through January 21st, not allowing fans in the building. So this is going to be the first experience for the Wildcats not playing in front of fans this year. I know some of the guys got a taste of it last year. But this group and with Tommy Lloyd, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle getting up for a road trip against 2 middle-of-the-road Pac-12 teams. Maybe Cal's probably towards the back half. The Pac-12, Stanford's kind of one of those middling teams in the conference. So it's going to be tough when you don't have fans to yell at you and get you hyped, and you got to psych yourself up for these games somehow. So interested to see how Tommy Lloyd does it.
We are going to also answer your Twitter mailbag questions. Special thanks to all who have commented on the tweet that I sent out earlier Monday morning. We greatly appreciate it, and we're going to answer all of those questions later on in the podcast. But, all right, so much to unpack here for both men and women's basketball teams. I think we're going to have to start off with the drama that's been happening with the women's basketball team, Alec, because this has been circulating all over social media, and I'm not sure a lot of people from the outside are completely aware or informed of what exactly happened. And we still don't necessarily know what happened, but on Saturday, Arizona did lose to the Oregon Ducks in Eugene. And it was just a bad second half for Arizona, right? They were up by 17 points. Looked like they were going to cruise on to victory. But Oregon then came back, and then they hit that game winner at the end of the game, which I was kind of bummed for Bendu Yeni because she hit
had a three on the possession before that to tie it.
And she's from Oregon.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, man, like what a great moment for Bendu. And man, let's see if Arizona can, send it to overtime and then eventually win the game.
Can I butt in before because we're going to talk about the stuff that happened post game with Adia, but that basket shouldn't have counted. for Oregon. You go back and watch the replay. The
it was
player,
still in her hands?
What? Sorry, what?
Was it still in her hands or?
No. She stepped out of bounds. She was out of bounds voluntarily before, because she drove and then kicked it out for a pass and then stood out of bounds, didn't come back in bounds immediately. And so when that happens, you have to like reset your feet before you can be the first player to touch the basketball. She's like, if you go back and find the replay, she's got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and then comes back in and touches the ball. Doesn't establish herself before the shot.
I was going to say, because I thought when she made the shot, there was still like maybe a second and a half on the clock left.
Yeah, it was like 0.5 seconds left. But, PJ Brown, our Arizona Daily Star writer, she freelances for us and does a lot of the women's basketball coverage. She texted me that and was like, because I didn't know that had happened. Like I thought the basket was good, but she was out of bounds right as she was going to touch it. And it shouldn't have happened. And so Adia was only fueled what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, and I thought that she might have said something post game because Adia Barnes then goes on social media and tweets out, "Hey, I'm sorry for what happened. I'll let the emotions get the best of me tonight." And I'm like, well, was she like chastising the refs? Was she very critical? Like what's going on here? And then she tweets out later on, like I'm fixing my crown or I'm straightening my crown and we're going to be just fine. But then point guard Shayna Pellington, who hit the game winner a couple nights prior to the Oregon game in Oregon State, which was a great story, by the way, right? She was not even supposed to play that game. Adia then makes a game time decision. All right, we're going to decide to let her play. She then hits a game winner. I thought was great. But Shayna tweets out that I will defend my coach and then pretty much alludes to somebody named Kelly saying something from the bench or behind the bench. And the only person I could think of named Kelly associated in this is Oregon head coach Kelly Graves. I don't know what was said from Kelly. And, I mean, we haven't heard from Adia. We haven't heard from the players on what was said. But, I mean, they were really going after or being very vocal on Twitter about some issues that happened in Eugene and that the Pac-12 should take proper steps. So then whoever's named Kelly can be reprimanded, which I think is Oregon head coach Kelly Graves.
Yeah, you're referencing Shayna's tweet. I got the tweet pulled up. She said, "My coach had every reason to defend herself last night. She was cussed at and called out of her name in the most vulgar ways the entire game by Kelly. We could hear it from the floor while playing in the most hostile environment. He needs to be held accountable." So that has to be
a guy named Kelly.
Reference. So
not Kelly Presnell, our photographer at the Arizona Daily Star.
But the reason why Adia is getting so much blowback from this is apparently there was some sort of gesture or words exchanged at the end of this that we don't have video of right now. We have not talked to Adia since Saturday night, so we'll find out later this week kind of what happened. But Jeff Metcalf, who does some women's basketball writing for now the San Jose Mercury, he is reporting that Adia did make an inappropriate finger gesture at Kelly Graves. I will see the full extent of that when we talk to Adia this week, but that's what he reported in his story today.
The old bird, I'm assuming, right?
Yep, the old bird, and it's at fuel to the fire because that's not once but twice that Adia has flipped the bird.
Yeah, well, she did the double bird.
The double bird, not at UConn, but in reference to the UConn game back in the tournament. So.
Well, and her reasoning or explanation behind it was nobody believed in him, so believe them. Which I mean, I don't.
Can't hate it.
I can't hate it. So hopefully, whatever comes from this, both teams can just move on from it. And are they expected to play again this year?
Yep, February 4th in Tucson.
Oh man, I'm sure Kelly Graves will be welcomed at McHale Center by Arizona basketball fans, arms. By the 7,000 to 8,000 people, right, that have been coming to women's basketball games this year. But with the loss, the U of A women's basketball team, they now move to number 10 in the AP Top 25. So they're still ranked in the AP Top 10. And Now moving forward, who do they got?
This week they host Utah and Colorado. So Colorado having a dream season, by the way. This is one of their better years. They were undefeated, number 22 in the country, hosting Stanford. They almost took down the number 2 ranked Cardinal, but Colorado just ended its undefeated season. So no more undefeateds in all of women's hoops, I think.
Yeah. And men's hoops either, right?
Yeah. Because Baylor and USC both lost.
All right.
So no.
Loving it. No dominant team.
Nope.
But moving on to the men's basketball side of things. So we just heard it from Tommy Lloyd. The idea of Arizona being ranked in the top 3, it's rat poison. It's poison for the mind. And Tommy Lloyd referencing Nick Saban, pretty much saying that we can't let this ranking get to Arizona's heads. We can't allow this to pretty much say that we're all that in a bag of chips. This a ranking, a number next to our name, doesn't validate us as being the top team in college basketball. And Tommy Lloyd said that, like, we have to, still play with this chip on the shoulder, and we still have to play with this, prove everybody wrong mentality, because that's what makes Arizona great. I mean, think about it. The Wildcats came into this season completely unranked. They were voted to finish, fifth?
Fifth in
the Pac-12. So a lot of people had these guys super middle of the road, and now here we are. They're number 1 in the Pac-12. They're number 3 in the entire nation. Like, there's a lot to be, surprised or impressed with this Arizona team. Like, they've surprised everyone. They've completely exceeded their expectations. But now that Arizona and the rest of the country, for that matter, is in late January and approaching the final stretch, this is where things really get tough. They thought, man, playing on the road against Tennessee was really tough. I mean, conference play, as you're preparing for the month of March, where these teams are continuously trying to improve their resume, because I'm sure a bubble team in the Pac-12 would love to have a win over Arizona on their resume for the NCAA tournament committee if they're trying to get an at-large bid. So
wink, wink, Oregon, wink, wink, Stanford.
Exactly. Bingo. And so a lot of teams are going to give Arizona their best shot. And I think what Tommy Lloyd is trying to do is say, listen, guys, we can't get complacent with where we're at. And this kind of is, translates to what happened this past weekend with Kerr Kriisa. I don't know what happened, but Arizona's starting point guard, who leads the Pac-12 in assists, was not active because he was held out for injury after he was, quote, horsing around during pregame meal. And this isn't the first time that I've seen, and it's not just Kerr, it's been other guys on the team where during warm-ups, there just seems to be
nonchalant.
Not very nonchalant. And I'm not going to sit there and say, like, oh, they're not focused. But when I see guys going up and talking to, some guys front row in the zone of zoo for a couple minutes rather than warming up, then that leads me to believe, okay, maybe they're not 100% dialed in to what they're supposed to do. And I'm not going to sit there and say, like, oh, this is why the previous regime was great. Sean Miller, we definitely got to give his respect, right, for the time that he had at Arizona. But one thing about the pregame warm-ups is that you never really saw guys mess around under Sean Miller. And Tommy Lloyd has done a great job of making sure that he's not silencing these guys, or he's not putting a muzzle on them or filtering them, because he wants them to be able to be themselves and have a great spirit and have an identity in a culture. But then you get to a certain line where you're starting to teeter it a little bit. And then you start to cross a line where it gets to, okay, is this, having a fun spirits, or is this goofing off a little too much? And then with Kerr Kriisa, you saw that. And this is just completely speculation. This is not sourced by any means. I think there was a sort of punishment with Kerr Kriisa, because if he was just a little bit injured, why wasn't he on the bench?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we've seen guys in the past where they get a little dinged up, they get a wrist injury or maybe an ankle injury, they're in street clothes sitting on the bench. Kerr wasn't even sitting on the bench. So I think Tommy Lloyd said, listen, if you're going to start messing around, if you're not going to take this stuff seriously, then don't be here.
Yeah.
And then go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, we played the clip of the rat poison, but, Tommy, this was, I don't want to say he was angry after the loss, but this was the most visibly, I think, he was a little frustrated after this loss. He said, it takes time to build the culture. We're still not there yet in terms of getting everybody on the same page. Like, he was very much more critical of his team after a win than he has been even after they've lost to, even after the Tennessee loss. He was like, hey, we're going to bounce back. We're going to be fine. This was a different perspective than we've seen from Tommy prior, the first 14 games. So definitely think it's the horsing around. It's coming back to bite Arizona guys a little bit, and I think Tommy is recognizing that and trying to nip it in the butt before it becomes, consecutive and becomes a real issue.
Now, every team hits a lull during the season. Every team does. There's a point in time where maybe they lose a few games. Sometimes it happens early on in the season, like I think about the DeAndre Ayton year where they went to the Bahamas, go winless, and they go from being the number 3 ranked team in the country to unranked or like number 23. I remember it was either the 2014-15 team or the 13-14 team where everything was going great, and then they lost a couple to end the regular season, and it was like, oh man, they're kind of stumbling into the Pac-12 tournament, and then they ended up winning the tournament or something like that. But I mean, the fact that Arizona's going through their valley now and how they're going about it, I think bodes well for this team, because their issues right now is that they have cancellations. Teams are postponing their games because of COVID-19 problems, so they're being without games. I mean, they're only playing one game every 8 days, 10 days or whatever. That's an issue. Kerr Kriisa messing around and not being able to play in the game, a game in which they won by 18 points. Like they're going through issues, but they're still winning games. And I think that's why, like, if you're an Arizona fan, yeah, like this last few weeks kind of concerns you a little bit. But at the end of the day, they're still 14-1. They're the number 3 ranked team in the country. And I'm telling you what, I think this little incident here is going to light a fire under Kerr Kriisa. And I was jokingly telling the guys after the game, all of our media colleagues, I'm like, listen, Kerr Kriisa is going to go off for 30 points next game. Or they're going to go to the Bay Area and he's just going to absolutely tear it up and then end up being like Pac-12 Player of the Week. And I think this is, Sean Miller did this, but I think Tommy Lloyd is doing this, and this is a smart kind of chess move on his part, using us, the media,
as a sounding board,
using press conferences as like, okay, you know what, I'm going to grill you, and
doing it the right way.
I'm going to almost kind of embarrass you a little bit,
throw him under the bus just a little bit,
but we're going to get you going. Yeah. We're going to light a fire in you, and we're going to see how you respond to this. And I like it a lot. I mean, like, I wouldn't say like necessarily throwing him under the bus, but kind of throwing him under the bus. Saying like, yeah, he was horsing around and we can't do that. And so I'm curious to see how Kerr Kriisa responds to this. Arizona's got a road trip coming up that's really going to be tough. And if they can come out of this unscathed, then good things ahead for Arizona.
Yeah, because we didn't even mention the tail end of the road trip, which is at UCLA next Tuesday.
Yep.
Which I think.
And UCLA look vulnerable.
They're going to stay in California during that week. I don't think, because it's a Sunday game against Cal, so I don't know why you would assume Arizona stays in California for basically 5-6 days. So that's an extended road trip. That's not a quick 1-2 and then home. So you talked about trying to fix things through this lull right here. Like, this is it right here. This is a big stretch, because even if you get through this 3-game stretch, you play ASU at home, which figures to be a win on paper right now, but then you're right back at it the following week playing UCLA and USC at home.
Yep.
So there is not a lot of margin for error for Arizona. It cannot afford to fall into a complacent state right now, because there's about 3 potential losses looming if they come out and have the same issues that we just discussed.
All right, so we'll have more coverage on Arizona basketball and where they currently stand on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster app. Before we take off, Alec, let's answer some mailbag questions. I asked you all, you got any Arizona basketball Pac-12 basketball or UVA football questions, send them our way. Alec, I want to answer your question first. Better clock management, Brandon Staley or Mike McCarthy. I would say probably Mike McCarthy. I'll give Mike McCarthy because Mike McCarthy can actually have some blame on the referees with what happened at the tail end of that Cowboys game, where Brandon Staley just very, very head scratching. But he's a rookie head coach, so give him the benefit of the doubt here.
There's no right answer in this. Both are bad. All right, real ones. Let's go.
All right, real ones. What's a realistic win total for Jed Fish in the crew next season? This question comes from Tyler McDowell. Appreciate you, Tyler. I would say 4 to 5 wins, but don't be surprised if these guys end up going to a bowl game, right? They got Jaden DeLora. We're talking about the Arizona football team. They got Jaden DeLora, who's the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year at quarterback, one of the top QBs in the Pac-12 coming to Arizona. Huge addition, but can you get the offensive lineman to protect him? If they actually have a stable offensive line in 2022, I'm telling you what, Arizona football, they're going bowling.
It's definitely possible getting to that 6-win threshold. I think 4 to 5 is a good number because you got to remember the non-conference schedule is pretty tough.
Yeah.
So you got San Diego State, North Dakota State, and then Mississippi State, which all could be potential losses because North Dakota State just won the FCS championship. So 4 to 5 wins, but I still think they're a year away. That year 3 mark is where you're really going to see the growth because then you've got a full year of all the recruits. We just had a huge recruiting class for Jed Fish, one of the best in program history, and I believe it still ranks number 1 in Pac-12. It vaulted up with the addition of T-Mac. So you get a full year of those guys in the program in the strength and conditioning situation. And, a year 2 of a quarterback under Jed Fish and, the 2023 season, I think where you're going to, the expectations will be pretty high. But for now, 4 to 5 wins would be good. And 6 wins to get to a bowl game, then you're on the right track.
Tyler has a basketball question. Tyler asked, also, I haven't caught much of U of A men's basketball this season. How, if at all, do they compare to the 2013-14 squad? I would say, man.
I think the 2013-14 squad still has a slight edge.
Yeah, because, they have Aaron Gordon, Nick Johnson, but, they can match up. I'm not going to, say that the 13-14 squad is going to completely run these guys out of the gym.
It'd be close.
Because I would love to see the matchup between Nick Johnson and Ben Mathurin.
Oh, man.
Rondé and Dalen Terry. And then TJ and Kirk Kriisa, man, Azulis and Aaron Gordon, Zeus and Christian Koloko. This is a team that could actually match up with some of Sean Miller's
eerily
best
kind of
teams.
Similar.
Yeah.
In a way.
But I would still give the nudge to 13-14.
Yeah,
for sure. Especially with a healthy Brandon Ashley.
Yep, and they've got a little bit more experience, too.
Yeah. All right. John Viator says, what exactly did Kelly Graves say that provoked Adia Barnes? Don't know.
Don't know yet.
Answer that kind of earlier.
I don't think we'll ever know. I think when we talk to Adia on Wednesday, which is when her press conferences are scheduled for, she's going to move past it quick. She's going to say, there were maybe some things said to me that I did not like, but she's going to redeflect it to herself because that's just who she is. She's going to say, I shouldn't have acted this way, but and just kind of move on from there. So I don't think we'll ever know the exact language that was used.
She's going to jokingly say that Kelly Graves said, "Don't you miss Ari?" instead of Ari McDonald. It's Ari. John also asked, review the offensive line depth chart. Where are we with transfer portal and recruits versus where we would like to be? So no Josh McCauley, the Arizona starting center, who's been there for the last 6 years now. He is gone. Donovan Lai is also gone too. So, you're looking at, returners of JT Hand, who's a freshman this past year, I think is going to get some good run either at guard or center. Josh Baker is kind of in that same role too. Jordan Morgan is coming back. Then you got Peyton Fears. But, Arizona, I think they're going to use those last few scholarship spots. I mean, they have about 3 or 4 left, and I think they're going to use them all on offensive linemen, and they really need it.
Yeah,
so.
I think they added one. They've added 2 more through the portal. One that's eligible for this year, and another I think that's still was a double transfer, so it has to sit out a year. So that I agree with you that they're going to be building through the portal over the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, the latest one that they got, Jor Borjon, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right. 6'8", 330 pounds. It's a big boy. Played at Mount Sac Community College. Only JUCO product for 2022. His last question is, are any other positions of need / shallow depth on the football roster? I mean, really just offensive line, defensive line.
Maybe a linebacker.
Linebacker, yeah. Because, I mean, with defensive line, they got Teovali Savea from UCLA. Yeah. And then they also have some other returners like Parashan coming back. Keon Bars is also returning as well. Yeah, I would say probably linebacker would be a good one. All right, moving on to other questions. Keith Stedman, except for the quarterback and defensive line transfers, which are huge, is there any expectation that any other transfer will do more than add depth? Most of the other transfers besides the wide receiver are second, third string on their current teams. Man, transfers that will do more than add depth.
Well, Jaden DeLora, I think, is going to be quarterback 1.
He's QB1 easily. I would say DJ Warnell, the safety from UCLA. Yeah. He's a transfer that not a lot of people are talking about because, man, I think about the USC game, and I know Drake London is a first-round wide receiver, and he is this great all Pac-12, one of the top wide receivers in the country. But, I mean, seeing Jaden Young get picked on, seeing guys, Gunnar Maldonado was very hit or miss this past year. I would say DJ Warnell, a safety transfer from UCLA, is probably going to start or really compete for significant snaps because they need it. Safety is a big hole that they need to fill this year.
Yes.
All right. Hurley Face 2.0 asks, what kind of antiperspirant does Tommy Lloyd use?
We don't know that yet, but we have not seen sweaty Tommy Lloyd through 15 games as a Wildcat coach.
Cool on the other side of the pillow.
Yeah. But I think it also helps that we see him with either the black, navy, or red pullover, like the little fleece pullover. So you don't get the Sean Miller taking off the white or the suit jacket revealing the white underneath, the dress shirt. We don't see that. I think maybe, if Tommy suited up, which he's not, he said he's against. He owns maybe like 1 or 2 suits that he rotated while Gonzaga, and Mark Few bought all of them for him. So, that's a funny question, but I think the sweat, if it ever happens, is going to be covered up because he wears such dark the fleece.
All right.
Pullovers.
DS asks, is it okay to stay a fan when the team moves cities? San Diego Chargers don't exist anymore. I mean, I follow the Chargers to LA, so yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, it's not against the law. But if you ask our boss, Ryan Finley, sports editor of the Arizona Daily Star, who's a San Diego native, he will tell you that the Chargers are dead to him and that it's not okay to move cities.
Yeah, there's some people that are against that. When you had the rate, but Oakland, I think Oakland fans are still heavily Raiders fans now, even though they're in Vegas.
Oh yeah.
So I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem with it if you go either way.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Keith Stedman asks, when is the latest data that a player could transfer and be eligible to participate in spring drills? Thanks for all. I'm pretty sure. The transfer portal is open. I'm not sure if there's like a deadline or when they can come in because we've seen guys like Mo Diallo just come in, sign with Arizona in the middle of the season or right before training camp, and then the next week
school had already started.
He's number 1 on the depth chart. So if you're in the transfer portal, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's fair game. You can come by whenever.
I think that
as long as you're a one-time transfer, this isn't your second time.
And I think it is more strict for freshmen, like if you're, or not necessarily freshmen, high schoolers that are going to be freshmen.
Yeah.
You have to be enrolled that spring semester in whatever college you're going to. So like all the guys like Noah Fafita, T-Mac, they're enrolled in the spring here at the university so that they can take part in the spring drills. I think if they were still at their high school as high school students, they would not be eligible for spring ball. But since they're college students, they can be here.
Spring ball's going to be fun.
Yeah.
All right. John Shones asks, will there be an 88 or 97 throwback jersey ever for the basketball team to wear? Shoot, better. There better be, especially this year because it's the 25-year anniversary of the 97 team.
There might be one because there's a Lute Olson dedication coming up at the end of the season. Like I think it's March 3rd against Stanford.
Yeah, that's right.
So maybe we see something there. But we asked Tommy in the offseason. This was like over summer before offseason training program had gotten started about new jerseys because this is year 5 on. Year 6 on whatever the gradient version is. And so I think he said this year they're going to stick with the current ones that they've been wearing, and then next year you might see a different look. So potentially Nike throws in a throwback to those 88 teams or 97 team for next season.
I'm just happy they don't have the gradient on the white uniforms anymore.
Oh, yeah, those were the worst.
Like the gradient on the red and blue, I actually like those.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the white ones, no business. All right. Keith Stedman. Man, Keith Stedman coming into all sorts of questions this week. Booby Curry, available to come back to the U of A football team. I mean, yeah, but I'm wondering, if you were to come back, it's almost like a situation like Majon Wright last year, or he entered as a transfer portal and then comes back. What happens there? Because that's... Well, he's a one-time transfer.
Yeah,
because he entered the transfer portal last year, but he removed his name. Majon actually transferred.
Yeah, he actually transferred and enrolled, and then came back.
Yeah,
I think Booby Curry announced that he had committed to UCF because he had a scholarship offer, and I think 2 days later that fell apart. So I don't know the specific language on if he can. He's definitely eligible to come back to the team, but I don't know if he had enrolled in UCF and then left, I think if that happened, he would have to sit out a year. But if he didn't enroll, there is the option to come back. But I don't know what Jed Fish and wide receivers coach Kevin Cummings feel about that.
And he's a pretty good wide receiver. But I look at the depth that they have. Majon Wright's coming back. He's eligible now. You got T-Mac. You got guys coming in through the transfer portal, high schoolers. Jamari Joyner's returning. Dorian Singer is also coming back. So it would be a great addition to have depth-wise, but I don't think Arizona's really clamoring for Booby Curry to come back. And our last question is from Javelina Enthusiast. They ask, who is the men's basketball locker room leader? Is there one?
I raised this question on your radio show 2 weeks ago when you had me on. I was like, it's going to be the second half of the season interesting because you got a lot of young guys and no true leader. I don't know if there's not one that's necessarily like point blank out there that you can just pinpoint, but I think there are leaders on the team. Like Justin Kier, I think is a guy that's a leader. Christian Coloco, Ben Matherin, guys that have been here multiple seasons now, but they're very understated in how they are. Like Ben Matherin's not a super vocal guy that we know of. Same with Christian Coloco. Now they might be behind closed doors, but Justin Kier seems to be, I think, the voice of reason.
I was just about to say he is the voice of reason on that team. And if you have a guy like that coming off your bench, that's awesome. And I wouldn't say that he's a vocal leader, but man, he's been Arizona's go-to guy every single time they've played on the road this year, and that's Ben Matherin. Like, think about it. The Oregon State game had the points that he put up, was it 29 or something like that? Illinois puts up 30. Tennessee puts up 28 and is kind of like their go-to scorer down the stretch. Every great Arizona team had a guy like that. And I think I'm not comparing the two because he's my personal favorite, Salim Stoudemire.
Yeah.
But I think about that 2005 season where anytime Arizona was in a pinch in a game, they always relied on his play down the stretch. And I think Arizona, you're going to start to see that with a player like Ben Mathurin coming down here too. And I mean, sometimes maybe Azuolas Tubelis can have that ability. I mean, the other night against Utah, he had a hot hand and had 32 points and was just going up and down the floor, going coast to coast and dunking and being athletic. I'm like, who's this guy? He's playing like Lithuanian LeBron right now.
He's better.
But he's better. He's better.
I tweeted that. It was in joking spirit, of course.
But yeah, I like, those two guys right there. But Ben Mathurin, if the going gets tough for Arizona this year, having a player like that you can rely on to get you out of tough situations, I think is a safe bet for Tommy Lloyd. But all right, thank you to all who have submitted your mailbag questions. We're going to start doing this more often throughout the season. Don't forget to check out all of our coverage on Arizona Wildcats basketball on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster app. And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms at the Wildcaster and subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.